Srimate Ramanujan. The whole civilization is a package of two components. One is growth and second thing is development. And growth is inherent. We used to define in Shastras growth and development as two different components, whereas growth, the base of which has been already inbuilt inside, whereas the development, that is by a composite action of its mind power, its intellect and collective resources management. For example, your child's growth is entirely different from its development. And by just nutrition feeding and by the process of automation of its biological expansion, it may grow, but the development is on the basis of the care, concern and the proper way of channelizing the intellectual requirements of the child through proper guidance, placement and other various activities that are to be performed. They also must be taken into consideration. Likewise, each and every nation, they have three things either by growth or development. One is the population, and there is nothing which is required for the growth of the population, as it is already accelerated and now measures for control is only taken into account. And the second thing is, as the population is intensified, their necessities, they will also be augmented. The third thing, when the nation is developed, as well as the necessities for the indwellers of the nation, they are very much necessitated. They cannot be just to stagnate. Their necessities, apart from their ideology of stagnation, the ideology of novelty and innovation has resulted in various other areas where it has developed much. If a person's ideology is mere stagnate, then the person's necessities will also be stagnate. But apart from the routinal and conventional way of thinking, human curiosity, that has two extensions. One is the extension of novelty, second is of innovation. They want something new, they want something great, they want to unravel the mysteries of the world. So this population development, necessity requirement and novelty and innovation has made us to cull out from the resources. See, these three things, that is the necessity, as well as the demand of novelty and innovation and the population, those things are just variables, but the global resources are that is constant. The world, we cannot create something from the world new. All the other things are there embedded in the creation itself. So the global resources are constants, whereas the expansion of the innovative desire, the instinct of emergency and necessity, as well as the population, these things are growing. So it is unilateral. So what we have to do is, it is not utility or exhaustion or exploitation of resources, limited use of resources, storage of resources, alternative sources of resources, lot of other things are to be done. So this study of the resources, the primary resources such as water, land, manpower and various other primary resources, that is known as economy. The science of study of the secondary level of resources, that is dealing with the manpower and other things, that came into administration and management sciences. If a wholesale system is taken into consideration, that becomes a government. A holistic and a composite way of controlling a broader mass is known as government. And a departmental management of the same thing is known as an administration system. If you do the same thing within your limited resources, it is management. So it came into political science, administration science and management sciences. So it depends upon the area that we control, the amount of opulential status that we control, and also the population or mass that we control, devoting towards a common goal. It is the science of utility of resources, distribution of resources, enhancement of resources through proper channels. In this science, the basic I have already told, that is economy, and the duty of a government, the primary as well as the primeval and all-round management system of a provincial demarcation, that is a nation, it is its role to see that the resources are understood, well distributed, enhanced, shared from the other provinces and see that the proper distribution that results in all round peace, happiness, harmony and prosperity in the society. That is their duty. Starting from these people who are administering the nation for resources, then second thing are the resourceful citizens of the nation who are indulging in trade, employment and various other services for self-development, self-establishment and contribution towards the nation, being the three goals of a person's life. Between these two people, there is a hierarchy of administration. How to handle these resources and how to guide the society to handle the resources, that is the duty of the government. And duty of an individual is to utilize those services so that the resources are well balanced. In between them, there are a lot of other people. Whenever a resources system is administered inside a country for its development towards a particular community, then certainly it has mutual benefit. Providing opportunities, providing instigation methodologies for provoking a person's diligence, organization skill, or conducting a business or trade, these are all the offerings of a government towards a person. And a person's contribution is in the form of commitment, diligence and also in the form of visible taxation. So there comes a mediator community, to take care of the physical health of a person as well as physical health of the nation. One is the benefactor, that is the government. Second is a beneficiary, is an individual, and who routines with the process of reciprocating their benefaction. The first phase, the government is a benefactor and the individual is a beneficiary. In turn, each and every individual, by means of his commitment, patriotism, proper diligence, appropriate way of utilizing his resources, making himself productive as well as the nation, he becomes the benefactor of the nation. Collectively, the mass society, they become the benefactor nation, and nation is a beneficiary. Amongst these beneficiary and benefactor, there is a profession of mediation, which is known as auditing. It is very much essential. There are three types of health we used to say in Shastras. One is physical health, second is physical health, third is social health. Social health is administered by justice and it is taken by advocates and judiciaries. Physical health is administered by policy makers, company secretaries, business consultancy services and auditors. Then physical health, you know that it is maintained by doctors, surgeons and various other people. So likewise, three basic health services are there in the society, amidst which whether it is being practiced or not, there is a professional nobility, there is a professional status, there is a professional divinity and there is a professional ethical code, especially for this profession of auditing. So now let us come to the qualities of an economy and the present position of Indian economy. An economical development is multifaceted and it is evenly balanced inside the country. And this type of brutal progress, I used to quote it as a brutal progress, I quoted in the IT development. Near the IT parks and IT development areas and even SEZs, we might have seen a lot of people in some areas with deep illiteracy, then lack of proper nutrition and hunger, unemployment, various other things are also torturing that sub-type of society which is very much nearly located to the so-called developed IT parks. So it is known as brutal progress in which a sector of the society that develops without minding or without contributing or without caring for the underdevelopment or the downtrodden nature of the major members of the society. So now as per the records of the government, there are two records. One is the record of global transparency. There is a company known as Transparency International. It is an invigilator of the global governance and this NGO that unravels the real status of each and every country's economy, the country's corruption, administrative system, etc. without minding the statements, so-called proclamations given by the governments. So number one, according to the Indian economy standard as depicted by the government, it is one among the 11 superpowers of economy. It has been listed in one among the 11 superpowers of economy in the world. Number 2, it is having more than 200 billion of forex reserve. Number 3, it is having one among the most valuable currency status among the Asian currency systems. And moreover, Indian economy has now come to such a level of contributing to IMF. It is a lender to IMF now. In this decade, our economy has grown to such a level that it is a lender to IMF, having 200 billion of forex reserve as well as one among the 11 economical superpowers. It is one side vision, like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. It is the day vision of India's economy, and what about the nocturnal vision? That is the dark vision of it. That is totally imbalanced, which has resulted in the form of inflation, stagnation, whatever the recession, whatever the steps they are going to take now. So now let us come directly to SEZ. Wherever we want to develop somebody, there are two processes. One is encouragement and discouragement. Discouragement, control and punishment. There are 2 points of justice or 2 phases of justice. One is contributive, second is retributive. In retributive justice, we used to discourage all the unwanted activities, to start with discouragement. Then they are controlled by the mighty clutches of rule. Third thing, by means of corporal punishments, they are severely enacted so that they can be totally warded off from the society. This is known as retributive justice. This is catering to the development of the nation in preventing from the unwanted or the so-called pernicious effects of the society. In the salubrious effects of the society, like the economy, trade, international business, marketing, etc., they must start with encouragement, then incentives, then subsidies, aid, grants and loans. This is the process of contributive justice of the government or the ruling system in the society. Likewise, encouragement must be offered to all of those people those who are going to contribute the development of the country, either in the international or in the international status. If you totally classify the international standards, no doubt this international business like IT industry, then electronics, they come for the final scope in the international scenario. But if you take the international scenario, what about agriculture? What about health and hygiene? What about the defense mechanism of the nation? So that is the difference between commerce and finance industry. Commerce industry, that is very much fortified, are very much focused only upon the development of the commercial status of a nation, whereas finance, it has to totally cater to the needs of number 1 agriculture, number 2 the stock wealth of the nation in the form of animal husbandry, third thing is health and hygiene, education and employment, subsidies to the people, downtrodden members, upliftment, etc. There are a lot of other commitments for the financial issues. That is the main conflict which has resulted into SEZ conflict and issues now that we have to study now. So we are a part and parcel of the society, number 1, and also we are very limited and less integrated. There are only 3 people integrated who can agitate and ask for, and political vote banking will immediately answer their questions. And we see that their things are immediately settled, immediately high-level council meetings are organized, and personalized visits and consolations are given by the highest authorities of the land, only for 3 people. One is the minorities. Second thing is scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. Even though they are unorganized, even though they have a lot of clashes inside, for a common cause they are well integrated. The third thing is the farmer. So these 3 things, more than becoming a national issue, they are becoming sensational and very much politically emotional, as those people are very much federated. They are very much organized, and their organization is very much required for the re-enthronement of the political system, also to sustain the present rule. So they are very much concentrated. That is, you must understand the political system and the economical system as a whole, without which conducting meetings for a provincial development or for a selective development with a lot of other various areas of dispute or dialectical probe, that will remain only just a closed door discussion, and it will not result in any sort of productive way of implementation catering to the needs of our discussion. Now let us come to the special economic zones. Already it has been started. Whenever a person, China or the very great developed nations, they offer 2 types of encouragements. One, if the people are unemployed, for unemployed people till they get proper employment, they are given some sort of resources for basic amenities like for their living, their basic livelihood. They are offered some sort of stipends, and various other facilities are also granted for these unemployed till they get the employment. Second way is, even if a person is interested in employment, for getting employment there are a lot of reservations organized which are unhealthy, and healthy reservations are also organized for the people on the basis of their merit. The third thing, first is for unemployed, second is for the persons for employment, third is for trade. There are 3 indulgences. So we have to consider the special economic zone as the third thing which is meant for the development of trade inside the country, which will increase 5 major things. The development of the industrial growth of a nation, that is dependent upon 5 things. One is on infrastructure, second is on investment, that is foreign or local investment. Third thing is export. Fourth thing is employment facilities. So all of these things are very much essential for a healthy economy, in which the specially economical zones, they offer the possibilities of, number one, to generate more employment. Number two, to create more opportunities of foreign as well as the international and intranational investment. To accelerate the process of export more, and to develop the infrastructure of a nation more, so that it results in the process of stabilizing and developing economy. So these four steps results in the fifth step known as economy. So economy, infrastructure, employment, investment and export are the five major components of a growing industry. And the specially economic zones are just not for developing an economical status of the country by just economy. It also creates good competitive as well as internationally reputed infrastructure development is there. It can create lot of opportunities. For example, what is the hope that is offered by the Special Economic Zone Survey now? It deals that by establishing these SEZ, we can give at least the job opportunities for more than 5 lakhs of people and 1 lakh crores of foreign investment that is anticipated. At least 44,000 crores of net revenue is expected. Only by establishing the proposed 94 information technology oriented special economic zones, now they are expecting a job opportunity for 12.5 million people. 12.5 million people. 1.25 million people they are expecting by these 94 IT specially economical zones which they are going to fabricate and establish now. So this is what the scope that they give. Apart from which we have to see also the possibilities in practical implementation. There are two major difficulties. One is the problem of transparency. Whether we used to study the rainwater is pure and when it reaches the soil it becomes impure, carrying the impurities of the midway. Likewise, each and every project is pure. When it reaches the beneficiaries, when it reaches the hierarchy of the mediation, starting from the ministry, starting from the government is dependent. Government is dependent on the voters. Voters are dependent on sensations. Sensations are provoked by the so-called self-centric persons of the community, social community, based on caste and creating lot of demarcations in the society and disparities. So, government is people dependent. People, they are sensation dependent. And sensations are provoked and controlled by the unhealthy organs of the society, so that creating a total mass and mess in the society, resulting in lack of progress or stagnation in progress in the society. So we have to take care of the conflicts also. So there are 4 conflicts which are read now, which are in the process of discussion. What is the conflict between the landowners and promoters of SEZ, which is very common now. That is a major hindrance. If a country is fully industrial, then can we eat petrol or IT products or any other industrial product? Our country is the second largest country in the world which has the most arable area. Arable, cultivable and irrigable area is more in our country and it has the status of being the second country in the world. If you convert everything into industrial zones, that is totally unhealthy. So there are 2 things. Converting all the land into industrialization is unhealthy and it is idiocy. Totally taking care of the agriculture alone and without bothering anything about the industrial development and updating and upgrading our status towards the universal development norms of industrialization and modernization, globalization, this privatization, etc., that is lunatism. This is idiocy and that is lunatism. So the people everywhere, they psychologically, those who are imbalanced, they will go only for extremities, they don't have any balance at all. Imbalanced, either it may be the imbalanced mentality of a single person or it may be the collective psychological imbalance of the society. I am talking about the collective imbalance equilibrium of the society which has resulted in this abnormity. First of all, we must have a society with realization. A society without realization, a group of people, whatever they do and however they dominate, they cannot get into any useful result at all. So it is a way of social renaissance. It is not just industrial renaissance or a particular thing. So regarding this appropriation of land, it has become land grabbing and land mafia, which has become everywhere, wherever there is announcement of some area being occupied by the government, it is just controlled by land mafia. and land mafia is operated by the members of the ruling party or the ruling party themselves with some representatives in that. So it is very difficult to move against all of these things. That results in the total agitation of the landowners regarding these things. So whenever you see such lands near developing areas, the land certainly they are fertile. You cannot locate a barren land or an unfertile land near an airport or somewhere else. Certainly most of the land, either they are cultivable by the natural resources or by subsidiary resources, by artificial resources. Certainly such lands are available only for this industrialization purpose. So these people, due to denial of proper amount, and the compensation given is very low, and most of the land operations and the financial dealings are not in white. So they used to get only that type of white amount, which is a very infinitesimal share in that of the real market value. The third thing is delay in payment. Fourth thing, the mediators in the form of political and local administrative authorities, they grab much of the amount these people they are not given anymore. Due to the result of which now you see the Kalinganagar issue, the Singur issue, the Nandigram issue, and in the Karnataka Industrial Area Development Board, they have located some 1,000 acres near the Karnataka airport. Immediately, as soon as the survey is over, the whole society they have taken an agitation and they just made these people run up their heels. The Karnataka Industrial Development Board officers, they threw their shoes, left their vehicles and literally ran away from that area due to that agitation. So these specially economical zones that appear as a nightmare and a daredevil to most of the members of the society, that must be removed. This conflict must be resolved. It cannot be resolved by one side of the government or one side of the administration. The second conflict is the conflict between the Commerce Ministry, Industries Ministry, as well as the Finance Ministry. Finance Ministry clearly says that if you give this type of concession to the specially economic zones, I have to lose 1 billion rupees. 1 billion rupees I have to totally set aside, and it gives two problems. Number one, that 1 billion rupees is always meant for defense, health and hygiene, agriculture subsidies. You have to do lot of things which you must have be having a magic wand or Akshaya Patra, the inexhaustible vessel which gives all resources. Defense that is intensified by Sri Lanka border problem and Jammu Kashmir dispute and the Arunachal Pradesh issue, the Ulfa problem at the Brahmaputra regime, the Bangladesh infiltration. They have to augment more on these issues, national security issues. How they can maintain all of these things? So 1 billion must be allotted for these things. And what I have to do for this 1 billion to be reimbursed, where I can get the resources from, and what I have to do for the other activities for which the 1 billion have been reserved. So this is the problem with this mission. This conflict is now raising upon. But third thing is between the politicians and also by the governing people, the promoters. That is the problem. There was a survey done in Hong Kong, which is said to be a highly developed industrial area, which is known as the Lehman survey. This Lehman study clearly proved the development of this unorganized, unhealthy economy that has more political intrusion, and each and every area as it is very much money giving or money minting, it is occupied by most of the people with power, once again having domination, once again having lot of other political infusions, which results in political expediency as well as it results in absolute nepotism. So this Lehman study clearly proved at Hong Kong the development of the specially economical zones that resulted only in nepotism and political expedience. So these two things are very much there. And the final thing is, for IT sectors, now there is Mr. Gopal Pillai, who is the secretary of this Department of Commerce, who really announced after seeing all of the confusions that IT sectors cannot be included, and there are some problems in including IT sectors in special economic zones. Because IT industry is well developed, it is just like offering water services to an ocean. Ocean is already full of water. Why you are offering water to ocean? IT industry without any type of this tax reduction and tax exemption, and why you have to bring this water, pollution control, then electricity, infrastructure, then like transport and other logistics, everything giving free for IT, it is it is an unbearable and intolerable excruciating pain to the most of the deserving citizens of the nation. So they have totally agitated that IT industry must not be supported in the special economic zone, and now they have heard that, and now they are discussing that these things cannot be included. That is also one of the thing. The other final thing is, apart from all of this conflict, there are some problems in implementing this thing. Very India has got this idea? No doubt they implemented in the year 2005. When India got this enlightenment, this knowledge, transcendental meditation output, then India has got, and what is the role model? It is always known as PRC model. Now the economists know that where India has imitated it from. India has done all of this area not on the basis of the zonal divisions, on the basis of the nature of the business. For example, cottage industries development, youth empowerment, women empowerment, they are given incentives, subsidies and all of other aid grants, everything is given. So special economic consideration was given. There are three things. SEC, special economic consideration, that is given for charitable purpose, that is given for cottage industries. Even at the time of the starting of the industries, they have given a lot of other consideration. Creating a zone, creating regional imbalance, which we are going to study later, creating regional imbalance, that is a problem. Offering for a particular type of industry for its development and contribution to the nation is entirely different from creating a zone. It has been copied from PRC, means People's Republic of China. China's political status and the level of people is entirely different. You have to take into account what is the political background of the nation, what is the mental set of the people, what is the organizational skill as well as the integrity and committed patriotism of the members of the country, what is the economical situation of the country, and what is the political decency, discipline and nature of administration of the rulers. All of these things are taken into consideration. We cannot just follow somebody. That's why I told on the education system, we delivered a lecture. Our education system was from 4 o'clock to 9 o'clock and evening 5 to 8 because we are in tropical countries. Westerners, they practice from 5 to 10 to 5. That is morning 10 to 5 because of their climate being very much resembling to chillness like polar regions. Because of the more winters and unbearable winters, they prescribe all of this, including wearing coats and not sitting in the floor. These things are meant for that time, which were totally blindly adopted by our people without knowing the reasons. They are also wearing coats in tropical countries and tie and 3 or 4 shirts they are wearing. So this PRC, you know that the communism productivity scale was there in vogue in the China. The productivity scale of the society was on the basis of communism. When the communism was totally entangled or phenomenally that thing is relaxed, then for developing economy of the nation, they required a proper way of getting into the capitalist enclave. So they established a way of getting some free tax enclave at the Shenzhen area. They have established something. Now the Shenzhen area, it is giving $30 billion. That is the total net revenue of the Shenzhen. And the total foreign direct investment of China is now 45 billion, whereas ours is just 2 billion. But we must understand also, instead of just approaching a nation's output or result, we must understand the nature of the nation and the methodology of implementation, the suitability of the methodology to our country. If it is not understood and just by a blunt and blind way, if it is totally going to be implemented, just being a copycat of China, it is totally going to cause a problem. There are 5 or 6 major defects which are there in this SEZ zone. Number 1 is lack of proper infrastructure. That is common in the total Indian territory. We are seeing that proper infrastructure is very limited, and giving proper incentives for development of business, that must be totally taken care of the Indian territory, and that must not be totally focused on a particular SEZ. That is the first mistake. Concentrate on a totalitarian development of the nation and also form a methodology of improving infrastructure in all areas, not only in the SEZ areas. So number 1 is a totalitarian survey of the industrial community and try to implement a gradual, it may not be as rapid as these things. Immediately they have announced 237 SEZs and they have started with 51 zones now. Everybody they have started now, the Adidas, they have started here at AP, the Quad City that has started at Chandigarh, and there is the Flextronics company, Nokia Motorola, that is ruling at Tamil Nadu, and now 20,000 acres have been purchased by the Ambani, the poorest person of the nation, to establish a company for 25,000 crores of rupees to establish a 2,000 megawatt of power generation system. He has approached the government of Haryana. So immediately it has been started. It need not be so rapid as it exists now. Let it be a gradual. The first mistake is, let there be a gradual concern for developing the infrastructure as well as encouragement for development of trade or foreign investment in all of the areas of India, not on SEZ, number 1. And number 2, it creates regional imbalance. It creates regional imbalance. That is one area, it is having a very hyper normal growth, and other areas are moved into turmoil. One area the people are given free electricity, free transport, everything, and one movement of the society, they are suffering for lack of electricity, proper water and resources. Isn't it unhealthy? Number two. And number third thing is rigidity of labor laws. No doubt you have given everything in facility. All the taxations have been totally either lessened or exempted. And no doubt you have given this pollution clearance, you have given water, you have given electricity, infrastructure, everything has been given. They have to work with labor. Still the state government laws of labor, they have not been properly maintained as per the salubrious necessity for the growth of the trade. That has not been done. That is also a mistake. So preparing a good nice meal and placing before the person and having his mouth plastered and his hands stained, that makes of no use. So now the labor laws are so rigid, they are ready for any time agitation, ATM. Anytime agitation, anytime manhandling, they are ready for that type of ATM. So this is totally unhealthy. And the fourth thing is scam. Everywhere you have a scam. So if it is organized between a lot of these people for getting the clearance, for getting the things boarded, for getting these things practical, we used to get into a lot of problems. And because of, creating a new policy any idiot can do, but making it successful only wise people can do. What about the EPZ before the SEZ? Before that SEZ, we had EPZ. What was that? Why it was not successful? It is the same wine in a different bottle. With some more additions and modifications, you have produced the same dancer in the stage. How she is going to dance? This dancer, she is going to struggle also. So, making this thing properly implemented in an organized society, that is the greatness. That thing has not been assured at all. Now what they are doing, now they are making an open house discussion. Is being conducted by the government now, open house. But really it is closed house. For the reason that it has no transparency at all. There are two things, one is offline and online. In online they will see something which creates sensation in the society, belief in the society. They have to always, they are engaged in the process of pacification of the emotions of the masses who are driven by subservience, ignorance and negligence. They have to pacify it all. Just as they will give the sleeping drugs for people who are mentally impaired, they cannot cure that. But in the place of the psychotropic drugs will be induced. Likewise, they have to keep always the people in emotional upset. For that is the real online. In offline they will do other things. Now the discussion is going on by the government with people representing the Central Board of Direct Taxes, the Central, the Excise and Customs, the Tax Department, the Foreign Trade Department, State Government representatives and representatives from the Promotion Council of SEZ, even ICA. All of these people, they have been represented. A lot of discussions at various levels they are taking. And they have taken few points for discussion. Number one, if a totalitarian exemption is given to the SEZ areas, then that will create in a great, what is what we call intolerable fiscal deficit or economical deficit, IFD. Intolerable or unmanageable, ungovernable fiscal deficit will be created, so that we can put a minimum alternative taxation system for all of these people in SEZ. That is the first thing discussed. And the second issue that is discussed is there are a lot of procedural problems. The outstanding procedural problems are to be settled so that the people they can peacefully start their business and conduct them. The third thing is there are a lot of these duties imposed on them. And what is about the duty drawback claim? The duty drawback claim and the duty refunding. And they also ask for some other services known as these service taxes abolishment or exemption, like transport and other things they are demanding these people. And the finance ministry is totally against it. Already without tax conducting the business is against the finance ministry. Already I told that I won't give my water to you. I won't give water from your house. You are asking also my daughter in hand with you. So the financial ministry that says that even the totalitarian exemption that must be offered is unhealthy to the nation's economy. Then these things are majorly asked by these people. Number one is the fund claim from the duties. Second is the fund drawback claim, refunding of these things, and total exemption from the service taxes. That is also being discussed today by these people. So they have discussed to put at least instead of the export obligations of 51% is the export obligation, instead of which they have just demanded 10% of already minimum tax that we can contribute to the nation, even though not as taxation, let it be contributed for our development. That has been put in such a way so that it is beseeching the intelligence of promoters of the industrial zones. So these things are discussed now, but we should not be happy about this meeting always being conducted in various areas. We should not be so happy that some meeting is taken place by the higher authorities of the nation, so something productive will come as an output. We must not be happy. We cannot be also, because it is a 20th meeting that they have organized. 20 meetings they have organized in all wherever the metropolitan or sub-metropolitan cities, wherever if some question is raised by the media or by the public or by the opponent parties, immediately the answer is meeting. They will organize a meeting, and all of these meetings and their procedures are to be sent to the Ministry of Finance as well as the Ministry of Industry. They are going to come out with the revised norms of taxation for all of these things. This is what is happening. And in the spiritual pursuit or in a global pursuit, universal pursuit, what is spiritualism? It is defined as the vision of everything universally. What is the greatness of spiritualism? Now spiritualism is narrow-mindedness. Conflict between people, clash between communities, then war between ethnic races. All of these things have the symptoms of universalism in spiritualism. But real spiritualism is spiritual people can do three things. As they know about the absolute and infinite nature of existence, they can have a broader universal vision instead of a narrow vision, unilateral vision. They can have a polylateral, multilateral, multifaceted vision, number one. Number two, they can take only consideration about things. They don't know about the futuristic implementations. Number three, whatever we see now, we are seeing only the tangible portions. Subtleties can be seen only in a broader view. So seeing the subtle grounds of each and every issue, seeing a broader ground universally, as well as seeing the future and possibility of implementation is known as the spiritual vision. And I want to say a few words and conclude this vision. Number one, there are four people in that. One is public, second is a promoter, third thing is a professional, and fourth thing is the ruler or the political system. 4 P's. The political system, we must have some sort of discipline and ethics in all of these things. Wherever there is an imbalance in one thing, it reflects with all the other things. There is no. See, the auditor or a person who is in the process of taxation is having such a way of nobility which must be divided into two major sectors. One, he is not only a service engineer of the fiscal mechanism of an individual, but also he is a supporter of the nation's economy. So now only the unilateral duty is now it is performed by most of the people, that the contribution of a person to the government, that is very much prevented. There are two things. One is known as taxation, and the second thing is non-taxation. Non-taxation is of three types. Two things are organized and one thing is unorganized. Non-taxation is tax exemption and tax reduction. The unorganized thing is tax evasion. So these things are the bodies, the various other organs of taxation. So each and every auditor, he serves as a messenger between the government and an individual. Number one, he clearly explains to the person. Now we are having management consultant, product consultant, trend consultant, then marketing consultant, infrastructure management consultant, human resources consultant, company secretary. We are having innumerable people. So it is a duty of an auditor who balances, number one, a person's revenue and his expenditure. How to boost the revenue and how to place proper expenditure and how to systematize the revenue in the form of, we used to say in our ancestral system, one is for charity, one is for establishment, one is in the form of asset, one is for rotation, one is for maintenance, 6 is for promotion. These are the classifications. So auditor is a person who governs each and every individual as well as a company to promote the revenue and how to preserve the revenue and proper way of distributive mechanism of the revenue for a healthy all-round development of the system. And also expenditure, how to go for economization, how to keep under expenditure control. All of these things are, lot of other tackling things are there, technical things are there to be handled by an auditor. This is one side. Second thing, he is also a messenger for the government and contributed to the government by means of urging the people to give proper taxation. Somebody asks me why I have to pay tax, somebody is going to swallow it. Doesn't have a proper answer. For example, if you For that you have to select such a government which is corruption free, or you can agitate against those things. For example, if somebody is wealthy, we enter inside a 5-star hotel. The hotel person is very wealthy. It does not mean that we did not pay. It is for the duty that we have taken resort inside for their services. Second, if you are going to pay some auto driver, he is going to drink, so I won't give you. This is not the proper way of doing that. You can just admonish the person and channelize them properly. So giving tax to the government, according to the Shastras, there is a resource balance mechanism of the cosmos. If there is tax evasion, which is in the form of two things. One is exorbitantly imbalanced luxury. Second thing is more black money that totally imbalances the social economy, which results in the form of all of these problems. That is the result for them. So auditing is a very transcendental and divine profession, and there is a professional ethics for all of these people. And it is our duty to follow all of these things, to give the guidelines to our dependents so that they contribute for the development of a nation. And I wish and bless that the special economic zone, no doubt, it should be there. As most of the people represented here, they are representing the promoters who are just a few hundreds of thousands in the 100 core community. Whereas the major proportion of the society, they are driven by poverty, insufficiency in various other areas. And it is the duty of us to consider three things. Number one, if the whole society is imbalanced, we cannot develop alone. We cannot develop alone if the whole society is put into imbalance and turmoil, number one. Number two, whatever the unethical codes that we practice or our fellow beings practice, according to Shastras, they are certainly transmitted to us and our generations and also to our professional comrades, spoiling the validity, genuinity, authenticity and credibility, accountability of the profession, number two. And number three, if we are developing in an unorganized society where everybody is put into turmoil, those what we call the curse and the burn that is exhibited from those people, that will spoil the economy, resulting in natural and man-made disasters in the form of political instability, economical instability and social disharmony. So we have to have a clear way of understanding a society in which, I repeat once again, number one, we have to think that only an all-round development, universal development or a total joint venture in development gives you real and healthy development. Number two, any unethical practice that intrudes in the professional comrades into our generations, also to our own subtleties, resulting in lot of abnormalities. And number three, the curse and burn of the depressed and the trampled members of the society will result in economical, political and social disasters in which we are going to be a victim, or we are going to leave our generation to be victim of the future India. Let us pray for a developed Bharat. In spite of all of these various these drawbacks I have discussed now, I have given lot of drawbacks now. More than the positive factors, I have given a list of lot of drawbacks, corruption, political diplomacy. I have given lot of negative points, pessimist point. In spite of which, India is having lot of forex reserves. It is having, it is contributing to IMF. It is developing lot of special economic zones. In spite of all of these things, if India is emerging as one among the superpowers, what is superpower? I defined in one conference about superpower. Superpower is not the power of a country which creates threat in the enemies or fear in the enemies. That should give solace and comfort in the dependent. That is real superpower. In that area, India is not a superpower. And any country creating just fear in the minds of the enemies without creating comfort in the mind of the supporters and dependents, the innocent citizens of the country, that is not a well-developed nation. So we pray that in spite of all of these drawbacks, deficiencies and malpractices, still we are running in the race and we are getting into pride and prestige and privilege. And certainly if we abolish all of these things, in which we cannot say that that is a duty of minister, that is a duty of the government, that is a duty of NGOs, that is a duty of sadhus. It is not. Each and everybody must be a contributor for national development, because each and everybody is a victim of nations' underdevelopment and turmoil. We are the victims of each and every turmoil or each and every disastrous activity of the nations. So we have also the responsibility, each and everybody's limited responsibility, either by praying or at least proper casting of vote and proper exercises of one's own citizens' responsibility for building a stronger nation. That must be the duty of each and every citizen. You are all first citizens of the nation. I want you to be a beautiful citizen, ethical in your profession, as well as conglomerated in doing justice to your dependents, as well as contributing justice to the nation. Narayana, Narayana.